Welcome into a live edition of the Desmond Johnson Show here on Wednesday. Desmond Johnson, my guy Marc Pruitt from the Winston Salem Journal, prep beat writer. Of course, you know what it is. It's Wednesday, so it's Wednesday Night Lights. It's our high school football preview. Nice little compact little 30 minutes here for you to get ready for Friday night's games. Only a few teams left in the tribe, but they are some juggernauts. We're going to review a couple of those games. Special guest head coach Todd Willard from East Forsyth will join us here in just a bit to help preview his team's task going down to Matthews to take on number 2 seed Weddington and the defending 4A state champions, clash of two unbeaten teams. Plus, we'll talk a little bit about Grimsley and Hough as well, and some breaking news coming out of East Greensboro. So let's go ahead and get into it. Go ahead and roll the intro. It's the Desmond Johnson Show.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
Yeah, welcome to the Carolinas. Everywhere you go, the sky is Carolina blue, the finest. Live action, feedback, the city need that. I've been number one, no cap. Here's the recap. Adrenaline is my addiction. I'm about to relapse. Step on the turf if you won't and get your weed whacked. I'm going harder than a martyr on the starter end. It's the heart of man, that's a rap like a cardigan. I'm breaking records, it's fourth and inches, I count the seconds. The over-under's my roar of thunder, my secret weapon. Yeah, the game is to be told. I don't break, I break modes. Follow me on Tobacco Road.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
And again, welcome into the Desmond Johnson Show here exclusively on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. If you haven't done it yet, head over there, rate, subscribe, all kinds of stuff. We're on 3 times a week, everything from NFL, prep sports, ACC sports, Hornets, Panthers, you name it. We cover it here 3 times a week there, as well as the Keep Pounding Podcast Network with a bunch of Carolina Panthers podcasts. It's the home of Believe in Panthers with myself, Jonathan Stewart, and Skylar Callahan, and a whole lot more. So there's a whole lot of sports content you can get in there every day during the week over at Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Marc Pruitt joined me from the Winston-Salem Journal, prep beat writer. It's that time of the year. I was joking with Jalen Gilkey from WFMY yesterday on the show, Mark, that with this being crossover season, it's like you don't even know where you are half the time with basketball overlapping with football and holiday tournaments and everything else going on right now.
Girls basketball tournament last week with the Mary Garber. Boys basketball is in full swing now. I'm going to be at a game tonight in Southeast Guilford. Never been to Southeast Guilford, so that should be fun.
Oh, you're in for a treat.
And, it's crossover time in the middle of – we're down to 3 area teams in the football playoffs. And there's a lot going on. All area football team voting's going on for me right now, so it's a lot. The transition times are always fun. We'll see.
Yeah, fun's a good way to describe it. We got a loaded show today. East Forsyth head football coach Todd Willard will stop by around 12:45 to help us preview East Forsyth versus Weddington, one of our 2 huge Western semifinal matchups that we'll have for you on Tobacco Road Sports Radio this Friday live. We'll get to that in just a bit. But before we do that, breaking news out of East Greensboro that broke probably about 30 minutes ago before we came on the air. Of course, you guys know we are the home of the Aggie Sports Network and North Carolina A&T Athletics. Breaking news from East Greensboro, North Carolina A&T fires football head coach Vincent Brown this morning. The university announced Wednesday the football head coach Vincent Brown has been relieved of his head coaching duties after 2 seasons. In 2 seasons as head coach, Brown posted a 2-21 record, going 1-10 in 2023 and 1-11 in this last season in 2024. Previously, he was the defensive coordinator at William and Mary. Coach Brown played in the NFL, playing 8 seasons with the New England Patriots from 1988 to 1995, after playing college football from 84 to 87. In an official release from A&T, it says, quote, in his final season at A&T, the Aggies posted a 1-11 record overall and an 0-8 mark in the Coastal Athletic Association. We want to thank Coach Brown for his contributions to the North Carolina A&T football program and for helping us transition into the CAA football conference, said Aggies athletic director Earl Hinton. We wish him and his family the best as they move forward in all future endeavors. So, yeah, if you had not heard that yet, North Carolina A&T has relieved head coach Vincent Brown of his head coaching duties with the football program out in East Greensboro. So the search is on for a new head coach out in Aggie land. So we'll keep you posted on that. Stay tuned to us here, your home for the Aggie Sports Network, for the latest on that search. Let's just hop into it, man. We got 2 big, huge games, and we were kind of looking at the bracket when it first came out, and we were kind of hoping that we might get this scenario And lo and behold, we get it. This game is at 7:30 p.m. At Grimsley at Jameson Stadium, one of the best places you can watch a high school football game in the state. The Grimsley Whirlies 13-0, the 1 seed in the Western 4A Regional, taking on the Hough Huskies 12-1. They're on an 11-game win streak. The only game they lost was a game at the beginning of the year to Northwestern, I think the name of the team was. They were out of South Carolina, one of their top teams, and then they just kind of ran through everything since then. Give me your thoughts on this matchup. There's a lot of storylines here, Marc. Hough has not made it to a state championship in their school history. The past 2 years, Grimsley has put Hough out of the playoffs. So this has been a matchup that's been brewing. This is the rubber match, as they would say in wrestling here. This is the third one here, the cage match. Hough and Grimsley. Hough having to come up the highway to take on Grimsley here in Greensboro. Your initial thoughts on this matchup?
They're familiar coming up this way. With the last 2 years, East, I know the year before that. I know East went down there a few years ago I think it was the third or fourth round.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of familiarity, at least in this area with them. And I think when we first started up back in August talking, we mentioned these 4 teams, Hough, Grimsley, East Forsyth, Weddington, as being the teams we thought would probably be in this position. And here they are, and here we are.
Yep.
So it should be a fun one. Hough's defense is really good, always really good. Matching up against the Grimsley team, it's been just pumping points out all year and really hasn't been tested. So this could be the first time we see Grimsley get a true test this season, see how that offense holds up. And defense, Grimsley's defense is nothing to sniff about either. They're great.
I was just about to say, I think Grimsley's defense is better this year than last year. They didn't have Bryce Davis pretty much the entire year last year. The Duke commit
just signed with Duke. I think he signed today. I think I saw that listed, but I
think today was signing day. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that will obviously help Grimsley out a lot against that Hough offense, which has also been humming, averaging 45, 46 points a game this year.
Hough is averaging 46.7 points per game. Grimsley's averaging 48.8. They're kind of almost mirror images of each other when you look at their stuff. Hough scored 607 points this year. Grimsley scored 634. Yep. Hough's only allowed 85 points all year. Grimsley's only allowed 116. Yep. They're undefeated in conference play. Again, the one loss that Hough had was earlier this year, week 1 against the South Carolina team. I think Northwestern was the name of the team.
Sounds right. They're usually one of the best teams in South Carolina.
Yeah, I think they were like one of the top teams in South Carolina when they played, and they lost like at the last second or something too. So Hough's been on it. They're nationally ranked. Both these teams are actually nationally ranked according to Max Preps. Hough is 92. Grimsley's 57. I didn't realize that they were ranked so high nationally. And we'll see in a minute. Weddington's ranked like 26 or something like that nationally. So wasn't aware of that, even though they've got Hough as number 1 in the class. Grimsley's the number 1 seed based off of RPI. It's about as even as it's going to get in terms of what these teams do. Hough tends to pass it a little bit more. Grimsley's on the ground with Mitchell Summers. Total yards per game is roughly the same too, Marc.
Yeah, I saw Mitchell had another huge game last week, 185 yards, 4 touchdowns, I think. And these are the kind of games now, cold weather, it's going to come down to the battle of the trenches with the offensive and defensive lines, I think, and who's going to force their will on the other. Mitchell's been getting it done all year. Faison Brandon's a threat to throw it or run it. So maybe we'll get the 48-47 shootout. I doubt it. But,
I don't know. I mean, they did it, last year before last? They had a shootout at Grimsley?
Yeah.
So it's possible.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I mean, this is just, I think it's just going to be one of those games everybody wants to see how it turns out. And the winner goes to the Western Regional Championship game for a right to play for a state title. So there's no pushovers at this point of the season. Everybody's good. I think Hough is the only team that's got 1 loss among the 4 teams that are left in the West.
Correct.
So,
Correct. And those 4 were the cream of the crop really all year in 4A, in the West at least. In the East, you've got your Cardinal Gibbons, you've got your Rollsville, those typical teams. But the West has always been top heavy, and especially this year, we looked at it in terms of Grimsley's bringing back, Faison Brandon, the number 1 quarterback in the class of 2026 in the country. So that tells you something there. They've got 5 stars on defense. Bryce Davis was at Clemson, flipped his commitment to Duke. which Duke seems to be doing lately, to getting kids to come over to Duke.
Yeah, doing a lot. Doing a great job down there.
Manny Diaz, yeah.
Get state guys too. So.
And Faison's been playing very, very well all year long. Mitchell Summers is the workhorse back for Grimsley. A name, it feels like Mitchell's been at Grimsley for 8 years, but but I think he's a senior this year. I think it's gonna be nuts if I look and see if he's a junior, but he's been there forever.
I think Daryl Brown would love to have him there at least one more game.
Yeah. I'm sure he probably would. But that game, that will be on WCOG. It's the WCOG game of the week. Mike Fanning and Shane Abernathy will be on the call for that for you. You can hear it on terrestrial radio in the Triad, 1320 AM, 105.3 FM. Of course, you can just pick up your phone, computer, laptop, whatever. Go to tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. It'll be in the secondary player on the homepage. That game is a 7:30 kickoff. I don't think they're doing a pregame, so they should parachute in right before kickoff at 7:30. The other game, and again, when we looked at this bracket when it first came out, we looked at these two potential matchups and we're like, ooh, that could be interesting. And the first one we got, Hough versus Grimsley. The second one we got too, and that's the third seed, East Forsyth, taking on the 2 seed Weddington. Both teams undefeated. Weddington is the 4A defending state champ. And who better to bring on to talk about the East Forsyth Eagles than head coach Todd Willard, chilling in his office in Kernersville, doing his thing on a Wednesday. What's up, Coach? How you doing?
Good, man. How are you guys doing?
Man, we're just looking at this bracket and just going like, man, there's a lot of firepower going on here between Hough and Grimsley out in Greensboro. Me and Hot Rod Funderburk will be with you guys. It's the WTOB game of the week, East Forsyth and Weddington. I believe it's at 7:00 kickoff, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So 7:00 kickoff out there. You guys, if I'm not mistaken, East Forsyth and Weddington have never played each other before. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess they've never played. I know I haven't played them since I've been here, and I don't think historically we've ever played them.
I can't remember them ever crossing paths. There's been some times where we thought they might, and then it just didn't happen. But this has been I know coaches don't like to talk about looking ahead or looking down the bracket or anything like that, but this has been something all of us quietly have just kind of been looking at bracket-wise as we've been motoring through the Western bracket, and it's been hard. It's been hard getting through this. The Western region is not an easy region to get through. It was voted as a top 10 in the country, hardest bracket to get through, I think, by On3. You guys had Mooresville last week, a very good team. Actually, I think they're going to be really good next year. They seem like they're really young, and they got some talent on offense that I was pretty impressed with. And they got athletes on defense. Feel like they didn't feel like they were playing defense like a scheme. It felt like they just kind of had like athletes kind of just lined up. Like they weren't even putting their hands in the ground. They were just like standing there, and then they would just kind of start running around everywhere. And they were covering a lot of ground. But Bryce Baker and company deliver. East Forsyth moves on with a 35-30 win. Your initial thoughts, Coach, on Weddington? I know a couple of years ago, you and Logan Carter were doing a coaching series. It was during COVID, where you were going around talking to different coaches and whatnot. I specifically, as soon as I saw this was going to happen, I remembered the episode you had with Andy Capone, where you went down to Weddington and you actually sat there and talked to him and saw the facilities and everything else. That was 3 years ago, I think, maybe 2021.
Yeah, it was coming out of COVID kind of time, I think, is when we were doing them.
Mm-hmm.
And Logan had kind of asked me, who are some of the upcoming coaches and programs? I said, I've gotten to know Andy very well down at Weddington, and that's when he had the Shipley boy still down there.
Yeah.
And we went down there, and I just told Logan, this is going to be a coach one day in the program. I just could tell. And we went and did that interview with him. It was really cool. I love doing those shows.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe once when I retire from coaching, I'll get back into doing some of that fun stuff.
Hold on, man. We got some time to go before we talk about that kind of stuff.
No, it's a great program. Andy does a great job. They're very disciplined. That will be the big issue. Kind of like last week. It's hard to out-coach certain coaches just because they don't make a lot of mental mistakes. And I got a feeling this will be another battle between the coaches.
Marc?
What have you seen those guys on film? I think everybody talks about their front four defensively, but they're not bad offensively either. So what are you seeing out of them, and what do you think the key matchups are going to be for you guys?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. I think everybody talks about their defense. They got a really good offense, and they're a lot like us in the fact that they don't count on just one guy. They got 3-4 running backs just like us. They have a big kid, then they kind of got a medium kid. Then they have 2 scat backs that are just crazy fast. They move those guys around at receiver. They have a couple tight ends. So, and their quarterback's like 6'4". A lot of people say that's their weakness, and I can tell you this: a lot of people around here give anything to have that quarterback. So, just overall a good team. But all the teams that are still playing right now are going to be good.
We went and did Grimsley Weddington, the Western. I think it might have been this round, the semifinal last year when we had to go down to Weddington, and Grimsley ended up falling to Weddington. Weddington, of course, went on, played Independence in the Western Regional Final, went on to the championship round, and won the state championship. This year, they're undefeated. They probably, I think, they have the longest win streak in the state right now, at 15, 16, something like that. Going back to last year, looking at their stats, very somewhat. Their defense was kind of known around the state in terms of what their calling card is, them and Hough. Their defense seems to be like the leader. But to your point, they can put points up on the board. They actually average, according to Max Preps. Oh, wait, hold on, I'm on the wrong one. According to Max Preps, they're averaging about 40 points a game, which when we put it beside East Forsyth stats, we're like, oh, only 39 points per game. East is averaging 50. 39 points a game is a lot in high school football. That's a lot of points. And you guys, coach, this has been one of the more offensive teams that you've had in terms of being able to put up points on a consistent basis. I went back to go look at some of the scores in these games. I don't think that East has scored less than 35 points in any game this year. And that was Mount Tabor, and that was a back and forth matchup. This Mooresville matchup from this past Friday. But other than that, it feels like you guys have been able to do what you want to do on offense more often than not. Talk about offensive coordinator Ronnie Horton and quarterback Bryce Baker, who I know Horton was on the nest last night. Talk about their relationship and how they have been able to, in Bryce's senior year, get this offense humming with all the different weapons you guys have available. Yeah,
it took a year to get Bryce to understand our scheme, just like any quarterback that comes in, whether it comes from JV to whatever it is, it's different. Varsity's different. You have different kind of dudes coming after you, attacking you. Plus, Bryce had to get used to the wide receivers. I think that's a big key right now. JP Gilchrist, Jai, Murray, they're all on the same page compared to last year. And I think that's helped quite a bit. And obviously, Ron and Bryce now see everything. When Ron says something, Bryce kind of understands what Ron sees and vice versa. So I think that year of growth of being here at East really helped.
Marc, you go
ahead. You talked about this a little while, a few minutes ago. You have a different person that can kind of help you guys out if it's not all clicking. You saw that in the win against West Forsyth with Jalen Murray just exploding. Last week, Corey Blair really stepped up in the run game, especially in the fourth quarter. How valuable is that against a team, especially at this point of the playoffs? How valuable is that you have so many weapons, whether that's Richburg or JP or Corey or Rottweiler or Jalen? How beneficial is that to what you guys are trying to do now at this stage in the game?
Yeah, it's last couple of weeks, I think teams have focused on taking away Jai. That's why his numbers have gone down a little bit. But we're not going to force it. Other teams might have to force it, even, taking away one of your best guys. We have all those other names, Rottweiler got a little banged up there in the second quarter, I think, this past game. So then we relied more on Murray in the backfield and then obviously Blair. So it's just good to know that you don't fall off when you have an injury. And it makes it easier on Bryce to know that he's got guys everywhere to throw the ball to and that he can have confidence in those guys. I think that's very important for a quarterback to know you don't have to just rely on Jai Richburg, one receiver. If they're doubling them, now you're kind of in panic mode. Now as a quarterback, you don't have – now you're like, okay, good, they're doubling him. I know Murray or JP are going to be open. So that's what really helps. And when you get this deep in the playoffs, you're going to need that.
I feel like, too, the past couple of weeks, of course, Eastwood being a 3 seed, you guys have been home. So you've been able to be at home and have the comforts of Kernersville and everything else. It'll be the first time you're going to go out on the road, really, with the playoffs with this group of players. Talk to me about the mentality of the team as a whole in terms of me and you both, Marc too. We all know Hot Rod Funderburk. We know he played on the 92 state championship team, and he constantly tells me how that team used to love to go on the road. Like they preferred to go on the road than being at home, because to them, there was no better feeling than to quiet the home crowd, with your play or whatnot. Like that feeling was just something different. How do you think your guys are wired in terms of going on the road, especially for something like this, where you're going into the house of the defending 4A state champs? Of course, people are going to pick Weddington in this. They're the home team, yada, yada, yada. They haven't lost in like 20 games, whatever it might be. But you guys are coming there with some firepower too. And I know after, speaking about Coach Capone, I know he knows about East Forsyth also, and you guys have never crossed paths. How do you feel the mentality is with your team right now as we're midweek, a couple days away from the game? How are they looking at this as a business trip? Are they looking at this as a challenge? Like, what are the vibes you're getting from the squad as they know they're going up against the defending state champs?
It's just a business trip to us. Obviously, there's no place better to play than at home, at the Nest. I mean, you can't. Rod can say you want to go on the road, but what team in America wants to go on the road? Yeah, it's great when you go and beat, and it's great if you go to West Forsyth and you win at the Village, but I'd rather be at home celebrating a victory. That's just how. But going on the road doesn't bother us, and a lot of times early in the season, in our non-conference, I try to create some long trips. So this ain't something new for us. This year we went to AC Reynolds, got on coach buses, went 2 years ago. We went on 2 long trips.
Jack
Brett. So our guys are kind of used to this. And that's kind of why I do non-conference games that are farther away, just so this ain't the first experience getting on a coach bus, making a travel, stopping and eating somewhere. These guys have already done it. So we try to keep it as normal as possible. And our guys are just focused, man. They love it. They're built for this. We build our coaching staff does a great job of preparing for them. We don't mind going on the road playing. And it will be neat to go play at a new place. It's always exciting to go play somewhere you've never played before.
I will say Weddington's venue is one of the nicest ones that I've visited in the state. The way it's like you come around the woods or whatever, there's like a little bridge you go across, and then you go up the hill, and it's like sitting there. And I noticed when we did the Grimsley Weddington game last year, their field has like a crown. Like it kind of crowns off at the top. And the only other field I've really seen do that in the area is Grimsley's, where it kind of crowns at the beginning, but Weddington's is really pronounced. Do you think that might be something that helps your run game? Because again, I've told you about halfway through the season, this roster kind of reminded me of 2018, where you had like multiple running backs, multiple wide receivers. There was a lot of different options for Ty Lyles to go to. He didn't have to depend on one specific guy to hit or whatever, and it made it a lot easier for the offense to get up and down the field. Have you looked at the Weddington field and kind of you and the mad scientist Ronnie Horton put together some some
it's
thoughts?
Funny you said that, because Bryce Baker actually asked me about it.
Oh,
he goes, Coach, what's wrong with their field? And I said, well, back in the days, that's how, before you had natural runoff and all, I said, that's how fields were built. You had a crown so the water would run off your field.
Mm-hmm. There's this like
East, that's why we have some places that kind of have some low spots. That's why water pools there. But that's funny you said that, because Bryce Baker asked me about it. I explained the history of football and kind of how fields used to be built. I don't think that the crown helps it any faster. I mean, maybe somebody old like me, if I start going down the crown, I'd probably actually trip and fall because I got going too fast. But it's a neat thing. It's like Grimsley. I told Bryce, it's exactly what you just said. I said, if you're over at Grimsley, if you stand on one side on the sideline, you can't even see the feet of your opponent over there. It's funny you brought that up. It's great. That just shows you the mind of Bryce Baker too.
Yeah. And I've been really impressed with Bryce this year. I think he's only thrown, 5 interceptions the whole year or something like that. I think he led the state in passing yards. There's a lot of talk about Faison out in Greensboro being the number 1 quarterback in 2026. But for my money, for this year, 2024 senior class, Bryce Baker is the best quarterback in the state to me. Like he's not shown me any reason to think that somebody else can do something better than what he can do at quarterback. And again, the stuff he has at disposal, he doesn't really target one specific guy. Like there might be a hot guy or something like that, but he's really in the offense. Like he's really just running the offense the way you want a kid to run your offense. And he rarely makes mistakes. And he's always really calm, composed. He's the kind of kid that other kids want to follow. And I've noticed that these episodes of The Nest that we've done on Tuesdays throughout the season where kids, they come out because they know Bryce is going to be there, or Bryce comes out because there's somebody on the panel or something like that. He might pop in and just show support, even though I know he stays after practice and throws with the wide receivers and stuff like that. So all that kind of stuff there makes it for a great matchup. It's Weddington East Forsyth. It's a 7:00 kickoff, WTOB, 980 AM, 96.7 FM in the Triad, or you can just stream it on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Myself, Hot Rod Funderburk, will be on the call there. The winners of these two matchups, Grimsley and Hough, East Forsyth, Weddington, will play each other next week in the Western Regional Final. And then they get the pleasure to go on to the winner of that goes on to the state championship to play Cardinal Gibbons or Rollsville or whoever ends up being on the other side. But I feel like whoever comes out the West has a pretty good shot to go ahead and finish this thing off. I know you guys don't look ahead. You probably don't even care about the other side of the bracket right now with Grimsley and Hough or whatnot. But can you, before we get you out of here, these four teams, they've kind of been the four teams all year that we've kind of looked at in 4A. Is there anything that you feel like going into this week and potentially next week where East may have an advantage that the other three may not have in terms of your team being older or your staff being getting longer or things of that sort? Or is it all kind of the same with all four of these schools?
I really think if you go look the last 4 or 5 years, these have been the teams that have been there. I mean, Hough has been a thorn in our side, obviously. Grimsley, we played them, the years we won state. So, it just shows it's hard to stay on top, year after year after year. And for these programs to continue to be where they are and play at a high level, I don't look forward to next week at all because I got a huge task here. I mean, I wasn't even looking forward when we're playing Mooresville or even West. I'm just focused on what we're doing. I know most coaches say that, but I'm truly honest with that. But any one of these teams, if we don't beat each other up in the next couple of weeks, I truly will be one of us will be the state champion, out of the West.
Marc, you got anything to add before we get Coach out of here?
I just want to say we kind of talked about this yesterday when I was out there with Isaiah, but talk about the impact his return has had on your defense, and just the depth that gives you with him, and the pretty miraculous recovery from the torn Achilles to be back 6 months later to play.
Yeah, it's given us a big jump on defense, both from the coaches and the players. And I talked to Kevin Wallace, who was either yesterday or the day before, and we kind of broke down our second game, just kind of asking him some questions, what he saw about us, just trying to get some help from Kevin. And he even said one of the big things was that number one just seemed to add some more juice to us on defense. And we're going to need that juice on Friday, no doubt about it.
There you have it. It's head coach Todd Willard from the East Forsyth Fighting Eagles. Got undefeated Friday night here on WTOB and TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Defending state champ Weddington hosting East Forsyth, 2nd seed, 3rd seed, and then, of course, Grimsley and Hough, the 1 seed and the 5 seed. Over in Greensboro at Jameson Stadium. That kickoff's at 7:30. Mike Fanning and Shane Abernathy will be on the call there. I heard a little bit of the Nest last night while I was doing the A&T game. Sound like Mike changed up the playlist a little bit. So he said he got a fist bump at the end, so he felt like that was a good deal.
We got to play a little different music at East. I guess Grimsley plays a little different. You got to get the crowd going a little bit at East now. We like to pump it a little bit. We have fun there.
I literally had, like, after the first show he produced for me while I was out, I literally had like 8 different random people come up to me like the next week. They're like, "Hey man, who was that guy that was was producing the Nest? What music was he playing?" So I pulled him to the side and told him, like, "Hey, I need you to do it again, but just play like 90s hip hop or something. Like they want something like upbeat and going." And I listened to it last night. And he was playing like Steely Dan or something. I was like, all right.
I think Rod leaned over to him and said, "Hey man, come on, man. We're at East."
Get this thing
Rod
going.
might have had some. We had a good time, man. Mike He actually smiled. I don't think he was as scared as he was first time. And he was kind of ready for my language and how everybody talks on the show.
I try to prepare folks. I don't think Marc has been to one yet. I try to prepare them like, look, because you were at the West ones all year, and they were in a huge area playground. The East show is completely different than any other coaches show that we do. Like it's packed. It's a fun time. Rod is the ringleader. He's yelling at everybody and hollering and screaming and stuff, and they're just having a ball. And this is our 6th year, so super happy that we've been able to do that, and hopefully after Friday we'll continue doing it for a couple more weeks. So, Coach, I'm gonna get you out of here. Marc, I'm gonna get you out of here too. That's gonna be our show for today. We will be back with a Friday show and get you ready for those games a little bit further, as well as some NFL talk with the Panthers on the Friday show at 12:30. So for Coach Willard, for Marc Pruitt, this is Desmond Johnson. You've been watching the Desmond Johnson Show, Wednesday edition. We'll see you on Friday.